Hey, how you doing? My name is Ryan, and today I'm designing even more custom LEGO Marvel minifigures, accessories, and builds. This being the third video in the series, I'm doing things a little bit differently. Not only will I be diving into more detail into the printing and designing process, but also at the request of many of the commenters, as well as my graphic designer friends, I will be using Adobe Illustrator for many of my designs. And what better way to learn this new software than to update one of my previous designs from the second video. And I think the TempPad from Loki is sorely in need of a version 2.0. My original design had way too small of details, too thin of a border around the black screen, and the Loki silhouette was unrecognizable as the character. Now, taking these notes into account, building the design from scratch using the shape and pen tool in Illustrator to avoid quality loss, as well as using a whole new printing service from minifigsfx.com, I think my second iteration of the TempPad looks much better than the first one. The quality is sharp and crisp, the colors bold and clean, and the silhouette benefited from showing more of Loki's horned helmet. But the two changes I think were the most instrumental for improvement in this design was the use of a tan tile as opposed to a black one, and the use of Adobe Illustrator itself. Being able to make all these small details and not lose quality when I export is huge. Well, it's small, but it's also huge. I think all of these elements combine to make a really fantastic looking TempPad. But how about my new designs? Well, if you remember in my Marvel CMF video, I recommended that Hawkeye had a different accessory. Well, that accessory I think should have been a playbill from Rogers the Musical. Now, I actually had to use Photoshop to create the elements to lay them out in the Illustrator file. This included the cap silhouette, the sparkling colored shield, and the accurate font. I then imported those into Illustrator for last looks and tweaks. I also eventually traced the silhouette of Captain America using the pen tool for maximum quality. Add in some fake text and a playbill logo on top, and you have what I think is a pretty solid design here. I'll be curious how this prints on a 2x1 white tile, and I hope the playbill text and the faux text below it are bold enough to be legible. But how about my next design, the microchip of AI Voice Friday from Avengers Age of Ultron. I'm kind of surprised we haven't seen this accessory tile, given how many Tony Stark minifigures and how many armory sets we've gotten so far. But let's see if we can't beat LEGO to the punch. First, I laid out the non-traditional border shape, separating the gray, black, and blue. I then used the shape tool to make a white label on top, and the brush tool to hand draw the Friday text to make it look as authentic to the original prop as possible. Then I added some circuitry lines and bulbs for the center, and overall, I love the way this design turned out. I think it translated to LEGO incredibly well without losing too many design features. This is the design I think I have the highest hopes for, as I believe I was able to balance the amount of detail, the amount of circuitry lines on it, without losing integrity to the original prop. That's pretty crucial here. But how about our next one, the Ether from Thor: The Dark World? Now, we've already seen a kind of quasi-Ether build with the Comic-Con figure of the Collector, but I think this would look better as a 2x1 tile print attached to a modified 2x1 plate. But as for the design itself, black in the middle, bright yellow-orange outline, and then I used this older wavy decal as the base design for my red Reality Stone center. At first, I just colored the Photoshop image red and embedded it into Illustrator, but I eventually relented and used the pen tool to outline the shapes for better quality. I find that it might be a bit more time consuming, but it pays off in the end overall. Same idea with the stone accents on the black section, which is actually based on old LEGO Castle wall print. I like to pull reference from pre-existing LEGO parts, as it makes my designs feel more cohesive with the already expansive LEGO lexicon of designs. And again, this piece is unique in that it does not exist by itself. It actually will be attached to a modified 2x1 plate, so here's hoping the entire image works well and not just the design. But up next, the smallest piece in this wave, the purple heart-shaped herb from Black Panther. This is a trickier design not just in size, but also in layout and shaping, as we don't really have the best reference material. The herb has some defining features like the heart shaping and the purple color, but the glowing element and freeform nature of the plant make it tougher to translate into LEGO form, so drawing out the petals took a few passes and color tweaks, but eventually I came to a look I was rather happy with. I opted not to add a glow effect, as you don't really see many of those on LEGO designs. Again, I want to keep consistent to what already exists in LEGO to make my designs feel that much more authentic. But how about a build? A character that I think we are sorely missing, and that's Sandman. Not as a minifigure, but as a giant sand monster. So let's talk about the build first, as I feel like I kind of brush over this element in my previous videos, and it's really important to get right here. Now, this build took a couple passes to get right, because I wasn't just making a model of a predetermined machine like MODOK or Kevin. I'm making kind of a freeform my interpretation of Sandman as a sand monster. My first thought was to make a giant minifigure shaped build, kinda like the first Giant Man figure from Civil War, but I didn't want to limit this character to, well, human proportions. My second thought was kind of like Hydro Man and other Sandman, a skirt build on the bottom and a human-like build on top, or maybe even a minifigure if it worked well, but I couldn't get the design to not look, well, blocky. The head seemed way too square, so I scrapped that iteration, but I knew I was getting closer. I decided to play with the head shape and size to make it one giant slab, rather than two different parts. That way the head and body kind of are meshed into one monster-like proportion. So after some hours of building and adding detail bulk to the base, arms, and body slab, I came to the final design and determined I needed to make a 4x4 sized tile face. And after coming across some excellent references with the official Sandy Sandman head, I decided to faithfully recreate the look on 4 2x2 tiles to create a large face. Here I discovered an invaluable tool for variable line weight in Illustrator. With this slider, I can adjust the thickness of any line at any point, allowing me to create bulbs and tapers that match official LEGO designs. Pair that with an accurate color palette, and this Sandman grid looks incredibly accurate and faithful to LEGO. It's these little touches that'll really separate this current round of designs with the previous ones. It'll be high quality and have all the line intricacies that LEGO already has. But how about our first minifigure? And hey, while we're on the subject of underrepresented Spider-Man characters, the Lizard. I've always wanted to see an official LEGO Lizard minifigure. We've had some knockoffs before and they look pretty good, but I want to try my hand at one that matches more of LEGO's design aesthetic. But I still want to use the knockoff as a reference point, as well as the newer No Way Home minifigures, to make sure I have the right level of detail. I started by creating a simple torso design that evokes Lizard's scales and stomach without overloading the print with small lines. I wanted to make sure the stomach had some definition to it, not just a flat tan shape, so I added some abs and some pectorals to make this lizard feel stronger. As for the small scale lines, I think this U-shaped pattern, kinda like bricks, is enough that if I scatter it across the stomach, legs, and back, it'll feel like a whole coverage without actually covering the entire figure in scales. For the legs, I took reference from LEGO Chima for these tiny little claws on the feet. I think it'll look really nice there. And for the face, I actually pulled reference from the LEGO Wizard of Oz Flying Monkey, as I love the way this giant mouth and teeth look, although I want my lizard to be having an evil smile. And after adding a couple of accent lines on the face to give the head a bit more of a reptilian feel, I think this LEGO lizard is looking really good. Now, I will have to rely on some unofficial LEGO parts to complete this figure. There doesn't currently exist a part to attach an olive green dinosaur tail to a minifigure, but there does exist one in knockoff form, so I will be using it in this minifigure. But with that, my lizard design is done, and we move on to the final minifigure, what I believe will be the most important LEGO Marvel minifigure to come, and we haven't seen him yet, Kang the Conqueror. There was rumors we'd get Kang in the Marvel CMF Wave 2, those turned out to be false, so I guess it's up to me to make the ultimate Kang minifigure. I started off with the face, what I thought would be the simplest part. Taking inspiration from the original War Machine minifigure, I thought the angry face would be really easy to replicate. But I had to be sure to include those two giant scars that go down Kang's face, crossing through his eyebrows, eyes, and eye bags. That was really difficult. What I ended up doing was surrounding these scars with the skin tone color. That way, there's a break in between the elements that the scar is passing through and the scar itself. It makes the design look so much cleaner and makes these scars pop a lot more. Moving on to the torso, the real test of a designer here. So many complicated parts in this multifaceted armor, I had to pull a lot of reference from a lot of different figures to make sure I was adding just the right amount of detail. My main piece of inspiration was the Mysterio minifigure, as I think that balances the details really well. I started by adding these giant purple chunks to make his center armor piece, and then I added the extra purple elements around that to flesh out his torso. One of the main points of contention early on in this design process was how to depict the texture on Kang's green undersuit. I really liked this line pattern used in a knockoff figure, but I thought the knockoff had too many small versions of these lines that cluttered the design. So I thought less is more and used this line pattern but sparingly across the torso, legs, and back. Moving down to the legs, the main challenge was making sure my design from the torso aligned properly. I wanted to make sure those detail lines had perfect flow from the torso to legs. And once I achieved that, it was really just adding enough accents on the legs to make them feel full. Not just in the boots, but also in some of the leg armor pieces too. Now, the back would be covered by a cape, but I did not want it to be blank, so I took reference from a LEGO shirt design and just added the green detail lines to make sure it had similar continuity to the front and legs. And after a few more hours of tweaking, the Kang minifigure was complete. I am very excited to see how this will translate into printing and how much detail I could really cram into one minifigure. I want this to feel less like a retail figure and more like a CMF figure with just a ton of printing and a ton of detail. But even though my designs are done, there's still one more step left before they're prepped for printing, and that is to remove any background colors that would match the color of the tile I'm printing on. For example, in the Sandman print, I want to remove the tan background because I know I'm printing on a tan tile. I'm removing any redundant color to save on ink and to save on the amount of variability between my color palette and LEGO's color palette, or whatever color palette used by the two printing services I'm using today. The first being minifigs.me, one that I've used in the past two videos, the other being minifigfx.com. I chose this service because I think they're high quality, and they also have a variety of other color tiles to choose from that aren't available on minifigs.me. That way, I have a better selection choice as to which color and tile I'm using for my designs. And one last thing these services will do before they press print on their own machines is tweak your design. Sometimes it's very little, like adding a bit of contrast. Sometimes it's a lot. In the case of minifigs.me, they sent me a video of them altering and adjusting my Kang design to best match their printer settings. Check it out, it's really fantastic work here.
What's happening in this video is that I'm trying to image trace your design, but the image tracing can't quite handle all of the complex bits, so I have to delete and redraw some parts. Normally, when I make minifigure designs, I look at source material and come up with my own design. Here, I am simply translating your design so that it will print well on minifigure parts. I redraw some parts to make the lines smoother, and I redraw quite a lot of the legs, as they were not quite fitting the template right. I had to make the design wider to get to the edges of the legs, and I changed some bits to make the design fit more nicely to the hips and feet. These bits can look weird if the print goes over the joints in the wrong place. I also added white underlay so that the colors would print nicely on the colored minifigure parts. However, I'm not sure if adding underlay is included in the video.
I am really impressed by the work on display here, and I'm so glad I'm able to display to you guys how much work goes into adjusting user designs to make sure the buyer is happy when they get their printed piece. And after a few weeks of waiting, my custom designed Marvel prints have arrived in the mail. Let's see how they turned out with our first piece, the Ether. I'm rather happy with this print. I think the red gooey design in the middle turned out very well. The color matching on the bright orange yellow on the print is perfect to the piece attached to it. However, I think printing on a black 2x1 tile might have been a mistake here, as the rock pieces are barely visible on the print. I might have made them a bit too dark relative to the black. If I were to make a version 2.0 of this piece, I might consider printing it on a dark gray tile as opposed to black to make it more visible. But As you guys know, it's not just about what I think. I like reaching out to fellow designers for feedback on my pieces, and today I'm getting feedback from Purple Brick Customs, a really talented Instagram designer and YouTuber who makes some fantastic custom Marvel minifigures. So let's hear what he has to think of my ether print.
As soon as I saw this design, I knew exactly what it represented. So great job there. I really like how you were able to simplify the original design for the Ether Vault. I also appreciated how you designed the liquefied reality stone. The different shades of red add so much detail to this accessory. The only thing I would change is that I would use a gold lantern piece and design the print onto a 1x1 cylinder piece. That way, minifigures would be able to hold this with more ease. However, the pieces you chose created a more accurately shaped ether.
That's some pretty positive feedback, thank you so much. And I do admit that if I had the ability to print on cylindrical 1x1 pieces, it would expand my world with all the different parts I could create. I could put this into a lantern, it would look fantastic as a three-dimensional ether. But given the available parts at my disposal to print on, I do think a 2x1 tile is my best chance here. And as you said, it does more accurately represent the shape of the ether. I just think I could improve the print by like 10% and it'd be really good looking. But how about my next piece, the Friday chip? This one I think is fantastic. It might be my favorite and most refined piece I've ever made on this channel. All the colors are clean, the line work is crisp, the amount of detail is balanced, the hand-drawn label looks fantastic. I am in love with this piece, but then again, I might be biased because I made it. What does Purple Brick Customs think?
I really enjoy Friday's AI chip tile print, especially the label. Super accurate. I also love how you approach the circuit board. If you ask me, this level of detail is in line with how LEGO would make this kind of accessory. In addition to that, the colors you have used really bring the artwork together and make it super accurate.
While I am arguably a beginner in this designer space, sort of a newbie, it's really cool to see a piece like this come out so well in your mind and also be well praised by fellow designers. That's incredible to see, and this Friday piece just looks fantastic in the hands of a Tony Stark minifigure. Let's hope I'm just as happy with my next piece, the Rogers the Musical Playbill. This one I think could use a little bit more work to the design. I think the Rogers text is a touch too small, and the blue R has very little contrast to the black silhouette, making it kind of hidden. While the layout is accurate to a playbill, I don't think this particular layout was my best choice for this tile print. I think I could have done a bit better here, but I'm curious what Purple Brick Customs has to say.
I like this printed tile, but it could use some improvement. The word Rogers stands out from the background, but not so much the Captain America silhouette. I appreciate the way you represented the bits of text that are on the real-life version, but I maybe would have added the stand below Captain America, just to fill in the gap below him. It feels a bit empty in the lower third, especially when compared to the top portion.
I'm glad he enjoyed the overall look of this piece, but he's incredibly right in that the bottom just feels blank because I can't make Steve Rogers bigger because that would make the text bigger and I wouldn't fit Rogers within the confines of the tile print. Yeah, this layout I don't think was my best choice the more I look at it. A great first stab at this piece, but I will definitely need a version 2.0 to make this Rogers tile print perfect for a Hawkeye minifigure. But how about the purple heart-shaped herb from Black Panther? How did that piece turn out? This one has that simplistic graphic design that I really think works best for tiny LEGO prints. There isn't a ton of detail, but what there is shines and looks fantastic. I probably could have made each leaf a different color, or at least a different shade of purple, and increased the size of the stem, the brown bit at the bottom. But what does Purple Brick Customs think of this design? Does he like it?
The heart-shaped herb is a brilliant design. I like the choice of a 1x1 round tile for the print. The leaf design for this accessory looks really clean as well. From a distance, the leaf looks like a heart, which I'm sure was your intention, so nice work there. The only thing I would change is to make the main color a darker purple and then use a lighter purple for the outline. This way, I think, the accessory would give the illusion of glowing like it does in the film. A faux glow would also match the design of the 2021 Black Panther minifigure, so something to consider there.
Now that's a really good idea. By inverting the color scheme and putting the light color on the outside, it would have given the leaf a fake glow. If you remember, I was going to add an actual glow to this piece, but it didn't fit with LEGO's design aesthetic. So adding a fake glow, or the illusion of a glow, would have looked really nice, and yeah, it could have totally matched the purple accented Black Panther minifigure. That's a great call and definitely worth making a version 2.0 of this design. But how about Sandman? How did he turn out? This might be my favorite custom build, not just in the Marvel series, but overall in my entire life. The amount of detail on this is fantastic. The overall shape and size I think is wonderful relative to a minifigure, and the printing on the face is a beautiful match, not just to the color tan in LEGO, but also LEGO's design of Sandman. It feels like an actual LEGO piece. But again, that's just my opinion. What does Purple Brick Customs think?
The Sandman print is incredible. I love how you added details like sand dripping from his face. I also enjoy the different shades of tan you have, and the coloring and shading help make the design look both super accurate and incredibly layered. This design also really fits in with your MOC and adds a lot of life to the build. The face feels integrated and part of the MOC rather than an addition or afterthought.
I'm glad he agrees that this tile print feels integrated to the custom build as opposed to separate from it or just an addition to it. And that wouldn't have happened had I went with the first pass of the build. If I didn't iterate and try different versions of Sandman, I wouldn't have gotten to this look and it wouldn't have been this good. But how about the minifigures? How did the lizard turn out? I am very happy with this lizard print. I do think there's a bit too much crammed design on the bottom corners of the torso. I probably could have used less scale marks there. But the tan torso belly, the leg claws, the leg printing, and the face I think look really good. I could have made the mouth a bit bigger, and the whole print on the face does feel a little bit low, but that kind of works to my advantage and it gives the face more of a dinosaur feel as opposed to a human feel. But Purple Brick Customs, what do you think?
For the lizard, I appreciate the detail and simplicity of the scales. You didn't cover the figure in scales, and I believe that would have overcomplicated the figure's design, so nice balance there. That being said, I would have probably added a few more details on the face print, maybe some shadow around the eyes. The detail and shaping of the mouth are well handled, and that is one of the main parts of the lizard's design. Also, the way the torso print carries onto the hips works really well. For me, it makes the figure look taller, and the lizard overall fits with LEGO's other No Way Home minifigures.
Ooh, I like that idea of adding eyeshadows to make his eyes feel more sunken into his head. That would give it a really good dinosaur look, and would be closer to lizard to be honest. But overall, I'm happy with how this print turned out. But now it's time for the big one, Kang. And while I love my design, I think I made a couple of mistakes that lessen the impact of this design. First of all, the line weight. I think the black lines on his torso and legs are a bit too thin, and against a dark purple print on a dark green torso, they kind of fade into the background. I could have really benefited from making them thicker to make them stand out a lot more. While the color contrast is there, I think this figure is missing almost an entire layer of black lines to make it really pop. But the face might be the best face I've ever designed. The proportions, the detail, this looks darn close to an official Kang minifigure face. I'm really proud of this one. The addition of the Catwoman belt does help this design, as do the purple hands and the two capes, purple and green. But even those additions really can't hide the fact that I might have gone too far with this design, might have made it a bit too busy, and had it end up looking a bit too muddy. But Purple Brick Customs, what do you think?
This Kang design looks incredible. I love the face print and the scarring detail. The torso and leg prints are super detailed, impressively accurate, and line up nicely. I like the highlights on the purple parts of the torso, but since you use dark green for the figure, I would probably add some additional light green highlights. These might make the torso look metallic, similar to how the armor looks in the film. But other than that, this minifigure looks awesome, and just makes me wish LEGO made one for Quantumania.
I'm really glad he likes the design, and I should note that I often send the designers a render of what the figure's going to look like before I get the finished figure. So while the design looks really good in 3D, I think translated to an actual printer, I could have gone a lot simpler, and I probably should have gone a lot simpler. at least on the torso and legs. The face I'm not gonna touch at all. It is beautiful in my opinion. But I definitely could revisit the torso and legs and try to find a simpler design to make it pop just a little bit more. But I'd love to know what you guys think of my third wave of custom designed LEGO Marvel minifigures, accessories, and builds. I had a great time diving into Illustrator to make some really fantastic prints. And rest assured, I do have some ideas for part 4, but I would love to know what you guys want me to design in the comment section down below. And if you are a designer, whether professionally or just for fun, I'd love to have you on the channel to grade my custom Marvel designs. And as always, if you like this video, be sure to subscribe to the channel, and thanks for watching.